is the other one messed up? I'm checking this one too.
Check. Good. Good evening, everyone. Can everybody hear me okay? Too much? Too loud? Uh, First of all, it's nice to see everyone here tonight. Midweek Bible study is always a great opportunity to rejuvenate, refocus. Good to see everybody, and hopefully our study tonight will be certainly worthy of your time. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But to begin things, I've asked Brother Danny Jones to lead us in an opening prayer. And so at this time, I'd like to ask if there's anyone that has someone on the sick list or a loss or something even that you're thankful for, whatever you'd like us to pray about tonight, Brother Danny's ready to do that. So I'll open the floor for anybody that has somebody they'd like to mention. Olivia Pounders. Pounders. Please continue to remember Doyle Manning, her brother. Yes, ma'am. Wayne Gerard. Their neighbor. Uh, Incurable lung disease. So please remember that family. Somebody back here. I know you're talking to me, Scotty. I have no idea what's happening. Oh, yeah, Miss Shirley. Scope. Next Wednesday. And his dad got to come home today, Scotty's dad. That's great. Be thinking about your mom. Certainly. Anyone else? Excuse me. Anybody? All right, Brother Dan.
Holy Father, we thank you so much for this great day, the great blessings that we have received today and that you have showered upon us. Father, we, we pray for those that were mentioned here tonight, that we know that there are great struggles that are going on in the lives of those that were mentioned. And Father, we know that you are the great physician, that you will
because of YouTube, I need to stay glued to this, and y'all know I can't do that. So every now and then just wave me back over. Apologize in advance. Also, Michael is visiting preacher somewhere tonight, so that's why I'm filling in with him. That's right, isn't it? Yeah. And so we miss Michael while he's gone, but certainly thankful for an opportunity to stand in front of you. So I know sometimes it's difficult for us to bring attention to ourselves, but I'll ask you to maybe nod or raise your hand if at any point today you said something nice to someone. Shirley, yes, please. No? Okay. All right. I didn't say after coffee or mid-morning on, and so the Bible's full of examples of encouragement and what we are to do. So before we get into some of the scriptures tonight, I'll take a little bit of an opposite turn with that and ask you if someone could share the scripture off the top of your head where it says complaining is good for Christianity and we should all practice it. Just any verse you want to tell me, that'd be great. No? All right. So it reminded me of a quick story and why I got into this lesson, and I'll point it to myself, and then hopefully it's relatable to some of you as well. I went through some comprehensive training about 2.5 years ago where I had to go to Madison, Wisconsin for 2 weeks, came home for a month, went back for 2 weeks, came home for a month, and went back for 2 more. For a kid from Batesville, Mississippi, I was a fish out of water in Madison, Wisconsin. In fact, at least 2 of the waitresses there asked me to talk again. They love the southern accent, right? I say love it, who knows? But in one of the classes, I talked about in life and in leadership and things like that, that we sometimes have to be a cheerleader. We have to be positive, uplifting, finding a way to encourage others when they don't have that encouragement in themselves. And we do that. And so along the lines of that speech, I had one little part of it where I talked about Eeyore. Does everybody know who Eeyore is? All right. So I went through the fact that poor Eeyore just couldn't see the silver lining and that everything was sort of a complaint, if you will. Hey, Eeyore, it's a beautiful day today. Yeah, but it's supposed to rain later. Everything has kind of got a down tick to it. Well, as I went on with this, I thought I had done a fairly good job with it and was sort of proud of myself. The next morning, I got to my class, the same 30 people going through this same training, and I had a stuffed Eeyore on my desk. And it had a little note that said, "You misunderstood Eeyore." And so I had a lady come up to me. She took credit for it in my class. And she said, Eeyore came at life from a different vantage point than you did. Challenged, downtrodden, mistreated, and was just sharing the facts of life that what he had gone through, some of those situations. And in spite of that, unlike your speech, Marlin, Eeyore's friends were very patient, kind, and loving and kept him around. So I had to do a lot of soul searching and try to figure out what I had done to offend that lady so badly till I realized she was Eeyore. And the reason I bring that up in a part of this story tonight is I don't want y'all to think that I don't like Eeyore or that Eeyore is some terrible demonic animal, right? So what I was trying to say is it can be misconstrued sometimes if we're downtrodden all the time as criticism. And when I started doing some textual searches for criticism, I found out there was a great deal of it. I could open it up to you right now, and many of us would go straight to one group of people that were released from captivity, and we'll talk about them in just a moment. But first, I do want to draw your attention, and I'll ask somebody to read loudly for us. Philippians chapter 2, verses 14 through 16. We've been studying Philippians some as well. Someone read this as loudly as you can. Philippians 2, 14 through 16.
Do all things without grumbling or dispute.
2 more verses.
Oh,
15 and 16. You're doing well.
not too
Don't be Eeyore. You're doing good.
so that you will prove yourselves to be blameless and innocent, children of God above, reproached in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation, among whom you appear as lights to the world, holding fast the word of life, so that in the day of Christ I will have reason to glory, because I did not run in vain, nor toil in vain.
All right, we'll break this down even more about the without grumbling or disputing. But first, I'll ask, as human beings, are we prone to complain? Now, I wasn't necessarily looking for the nod of the head. It's tough sometimes, but I heard a sure. I think it's part of our nature and what we're around now, what we're exposed to, immediate gratification, immediate service. It pours out of me every time I visit local restaurants these days for some reason, in my mind at least, or my poor friends that have to sit with me and hear it. Somebody say something. Born complainers? That's interesting. So he said, as a baby, we have to complain to get fed. Yeah. All right, so we started off with that. As we think about, I guess I go back to the lady that left me the stuffed animal with the note. Let's try to think of it from another way for just a moment. When we go out to a restaurant to eat and we pay our hard-earned money, do we expect what we paid for? I have no idea what you're saying. Does anybody know what Kathy's saying? Oh, go ahead. I have no idea. Uh-oh. You didn't become that person. You just understood why they were. Sure. Yes. Sure. And I want to make. Mhm. And that. Yes. Well, and I'm so glad you brought it up. That is exactly what the lady in my class was trying to tell me. So I want to make sure, I should have probably said this to begin with. There are medical conditions, there are dispositions, there is depression. All of that's real. Absolutely. And so I'm talking outside of that realm and in generalities. Okay, so definitely don't want anybody to think I'm judging someone's attitude, or hey, you should be like me, and that's after 2 cups of coffee, right? I had an unfair start to begin. So I'll ask the question again. And by the way, I did not mean to overlook you. If someone is raising their hand, just a little bit higher for me, because well, and it's hard for me to hear. Plus, I saw Kathy doing like this, and I went, "What's happening?" So anyway, thank you. With that in mind, when we go out to eat, do we deserve to get what we paid for? Okay, yes. Do we deserve excellence, do we think? I would say yes. We expect excellent service. What if I told you I have a good friend that lives in Georgia, and when she was going through med school, she worked as a waitress. And if you asked her to tell about her worst experience, true story, she would tell you it's every Sunday at lunch. Y'all know where I'm going with that? Woo, man, that's not so good, right? That's not a good reputation to have, right? She said that it was those people that had been at church that came in and that didn't leave a tip, or if they did, it was like a penny, or they were harshly critical, and these things. Not everybody that went there, but it was large enough that she had put all of us in the same basket, right? So we have to make sure we're very careful of that. So when I talk about that, Paul argued for his rights in Acts chapter 16. He and Silas were unfairly beaten during that time. That's some scripture in addition to that. But what I kind of wanted to get to here is back to our original text of chapter 2, verses 14 through 16 in Philippians here. Paul said, do all things without grumbling or disputing. Are the scriptures literal? Was that too vague of a question? All things. Anybody? Does it say unless you're tired or irritable? No exception. They had it coming. Somebody needed to tell them, and I'm that person to tell them. Right? As we think about this, it's part of what I struggle with myself. And so as I go through some of the study, I thought this may be something nice to share. Just if nothing else, maybe it's me and y'all can all pray for me. But I'm working on it, certainly. So when we think about all things, I go back to grumbling or disputing. Someone tell me the difference in grumbling and disputing. One of the things, and I don't know if we'll get to it tonight, I've taught several quarters on the book of James. Number one, it's only got 5 chapters. It's easy to teach. It's practical. But one of the main themes through there deals with one particular part of your body, your tongue, and how dangerous it is. It's why I started tonight with how many of you in here today said something nice to someone. It's a conscious decision. We know the Bible's full of examples. I think about Barnabas, and when we write the cards or the emails or the texts to our members to tell them we appreciate them and encourage them. Do you like encouragement? I like encouragement. Do you like criticism? And I would venture to say most do not. I may or may not have met a couple people that actually do like that sandbox. They like to play in that. I personally don't think, I think most of the time when I've been around criticism, if it is in a disputing way, it makes people defensive. Immediately. So whatever the argument was about or the concern was about gets lost in the tone, in the attack of it, and those types of things. So is it possible to have blessings flowing out when criticisms are flying out as well? Just a generic question. What'd you say? Usually not. Why is complaining so rampant? We started as babies to get fed. It's around us. Some of the funniest shows on television have to do with the wife complaining about the husband or the husband complaining about the wife or them all complaining about their kids. It's a lot of complaining around us. So that example is there. Someone turn to 1 Peter, or everyone can if you'd like to. 1 Peter chapter 4 and verse 9. You may have it by heart. Someone just read that out loud for us. 1 Peter 4, 9.
Use hospitality one to another without grudging.
Without grudging. Grumbling is another word for that. Yeah, murmuring, another one. If someone calls you a murmurer, it's not a compliment if you didn't know. But why do you think there are so many examples of building up and edification and kind words and hospitality and gentleness? Hospitality is mentioned several times, as we look through this study even tonight. And then there's so much in there about criticism or complaining. It's always been around, always been a challenge.
If it weren't, it would not be in the book.
Absolutely. Now we factor in the non-believer. Colossians chapter 4, verses 5 and 6. Someone read that for us in the group. Colossians 4, verses 5 and 6. First one there, read for us. Seasoned with salt, so you know how to answer with every man. One of the classes I teach has a lot to do with tone. And one of the examples I give, because I've seen it before, but if you get a brand new puppy and you've got that puppy at home on the carpet and you get down in front of him and you go, "Who's the man? Look at that cute puppy." Do y'all know what that puppy does? Licks you in the face, wags his tail, looks happy. Now what if you get down on your, all fours in front of that puppy again and you go, "Who's the ugliest, stinkiest, ugly dog I've ever seen?" Do y'all know what that puppy does? It licks you in the face and wags its tail. Because all it heard was the tone. So other people, and especially non-believers, are in tune with how we talk about one another, how we talk about everyone around us in general. And so certainly part of what I took from Colossians 4 verses 5 and 6 is especially the complaining and criticism in front of non-believers. It's pretty specific about it. And so we've got a big charge with that. And then I go back to the part that says always be gracious and seasoned with salt. What does seasoned with salt have to do with this? What does that mean? Curing agent? Purifying? I'm sorry, Judy. Brings out good flavor. I like that. So make that application for us. Say it makes you happy? Salt makes you happy? I believe that. So again, when I get back to the question about literal with scriptures, and it says always be gracious with your language, does it really mean that? Am I taking it out of context, or is that real? Yes. Yeah, I like that. As many times as those that were around him all the time saw miracles and all these things, they still stumbled and fell along the way. And at some point, if that's Marlin dealing with them, I'm frustrated, right? And he had great patience and love, seasoned with salt, encouraging, those types of things. So to be Christ-like, your friend asks you the question, "What do you think about this?" And you give an answer and they go, "Well, that's stupid." I don't know. I'm not telling you tonight that that's a sin. I'm just saying I'm pretty sure that's not seasoned with salt or gracious. But it's easy to do because we are human and we get a little frustrated at times. God does not care for our grumbling. He's very specific about it. what His will is for us. If we are complainers and criticizers, it is actually an opposition to what He wants us to do and how He wants us to be. So I'll ask, what happened when Israel grumbled against Him? Let's look at 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 9 and 10. We'll tie that together. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 9 and 10. Someone read that for us, those two verses. Destroyed by the destroyer, grumbled as some of them did. Did the Israelites, before they were led out, what were they doing? Slavery? Say it again. Making bread. Do you think they dreamed about getting out, being free? Did they want that probably more than anything? I would say for many of them, yes. So that day happens and they're finally free. Were they thankful? Or how long does the thankfulness last? Till they got out of the gate. Till they were hungry or tired or irritable. Sound familiar to all of us? Right? It is the joke with my family, one of many I'm sure, but when we're on vacation or out of town, just feed the big bear and then everything else is good, right? I know we want to shop and then eat, but if we'll eat and then shop, you can shop longer, right? And so I know my limitations, so I have to be careful with the words and the tone that we're using with that. Back in chapter 10, verse 5, Paul states, "Nevertheless, with most of them, God was not pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness." In chapter 10, verse 11, it says, "Now these things happened to them as an example, but they were written down for our instruction, on whom the end of the age has come." So when we think about why certain scriptures are in the Bible or what they mean to us, dealing with the content of the Israelites and the grumbling, it's there to help us. Would you agree? It's the same challenges we go through now, the same challenges that we face. And so I appreciate the fact it's relatable. I've often heard, there are a couple of you in here that have taught classes, and I've heard you say that when you think about who was chosen to be apostles, who was chosen to be a part of God's people, they were people we should be able to relate to. Fishermen, workers, not royalty. Not something that would be hard for us to think about. Well, when we look at these examples, it's easy to understand if we're honest with ourselves. When you talked a little bit earlier about remembering the old people, I paraphrased. You didn't do it like that. But I remember being at Sardis Lake Christian Camp before air conditioning. It hasn't been there that long. And I remember thinking, I could die in this bed tonight. It's so hot. So now, guess what the now old person does when I hear someone at camp go, it's hot outside. I go, you don't know what hot is. I turned into that old person, right? I started doing that thing we all do as we get older. And so we have to be careful what we're grumbling about, certainly, and there's really no reason. If you hear somebody my age grumbling about it being hot at camp, let me know. We'll take care of that. Philippians 2 and verse 15, it told us we were in the middle of a wicked and perverse generation. Again, I won't necessarily ask anyone to volunteer this. You're welcome to jump in. But I've got a couple people around me that will say it's never been worse than it is right now. The world's as bad as it's ever been. And I won't debate that. I mean, it's not for me to debate. I would just simply ask, what happened to Sodom and Gomorrah? Right? Bad's been bad for a long time, and there's bad around us. the examples we have here, when we look at this, we try to build on the things that we learn. And so when we think about a verse that says we were in the middle of a wicked and perverse generation, we're to shine as lights. You know, with VBS coming up, we're going to hear a whole lot of hide it under a bushel, no. As we get older, as adults, it's even more that way. A good example, a guiding light, someone that says, I don't know much about that person, but I know they're a good person, right? They're honest, those things. There should be something different about Christians, right? I think part of that is the encouragement part of it, the lack of criticism and complaining. And so it's one of the other reasons why I got into this study. 2 Corinthians chapter 4 and verse 6, for God who said, let light shine out of darkness has shone in our hearts to give the light of the knowledge of the glory of God in the face of Jesus Christ. We are the face of Jesus. Okay, let's stop there for a moment. Be Christ-like, you said earlier. When I say we are the face of Jesus today, what does that mean? I'm not making light of that, by the way. I'm not comparing us to Jesus. I'm just asking, what does that mean? You may be the only person they've ever known to learn about Jesus from, right? So with some of us, we only get one chance, that one experience with them. So what if they are our waiter that we're not happy with at the time? I feel really good when I'm doing my Bible study and I've gone through my prayers and I get into my car and I see a car on an on-ramp coming, and all of a sudden I forget everything I just read, and now it's on, it's a race. I cannot allow them to get on this interstate before me, right? I'm not that way anymore, but I can be. I've got it inside me. I have to pray it away, right? But it is part of it. I've told this story in here before. For those that haven't heard it, I'm going to share it briefly. For those that have, I apologize. But as I was working in Tupelo in television, I had a lady cut me off in traffic across 4 lanes right across from West Main Church of Christ, right into the Starbucks parking lot. And I did what we all probably, do. She looked in the rearview mirror and I went, right? And so I was very frustrated, not angry, just sort of. And when I got to the window, they said, the lady in front of you wanted you to know she didn't see you till she pulled in front of you. And she wants you to know she's sorry and she paid for your coffee and added a Danish or whatever. I felt sick to my stomach, and then I immediately prayed, please don't let her know that I go to West Main, right? Because at that point I had done wrong. I had done totally wrong, and it was humbling. And I wished I could say that's the only time I've ever done that. I'm working on it. But certainly, if that's the only opportunity I had to expose her to Christ, she did a better job of it than I did, right? Uh-oh. You were not that lady. Okay. When you say y'all, you don't have to look at me. Look around the class. Sure I am. I mean, that happens, that self-awareness. I mean, the best thing I can say, and it still is a struggle for me, but I would say if you know that's an issue and you're trying to be as Christ-like as possible and not allow that to happen, I would say start looking at their facial cues while you're talking. Because if they're going, yep. Slow to anger. Yep. Sure. Well, and it is why I told the story about the on-ramp, because I really had gotten up in my hotel room and studied and prayed and was in a good spot. And then something happened, right? Satan was riding shotgun with me. And so I do think that is correct, though. We need to put it into our hearts ahead of time before it happens. No, that's great. You got such a nice disposition. I can't imagine that's the case. Yes, sir. Sorry. Possible that the word critique is the root word of criticism. I would say it is possible, but I don't know if that's factual. Can be. Yeah, critique can be a lot kinder than criticism. Wow. You know, it's difficult. I have learned my limitations for the most part. So I do know if somebody walks up to me and says, this is hard for me, but I'm going to tell you something. But I don't mean to hurt your feelings. Here it comes, right? Just don't tell me. Yeah. Can we just pray about it? Whatever it is, I'm sorry, right? That kind of thing. Yes, sir. Yes. Yes. Yep. Right. Right. Sure. Yep. His greatest example. Yeah. Right. That's the part. He was humble. I love that, and I draw that into something I appreciate is he could have called 10,000 angels. Knowing that alone, I would think would be difficult for humanity. Yeah, no doubt. Yes, sir. Right. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Yes. Book of James, the tongue is dangerous. Jennifer, do you have something? I'm sorry, I thought you raised your hand. You're fixing your hair. I'm sorry. Um, one of the things I wanted to make sure, because we're running out of time, is it's a generic question. We've talked about it dozens and dozens of times. But will there be people on Judgment Day that are surprised that they're not going to heaven? What, we have example of it. The answer is yes. My greatest fear is that that's just the way I am, or I'm that way, or my whole family's been that way, is our way of tricking ourselves with what we're dealing with. Deception comes from the devil. Shows us this is not that bad. Hey, at least I'm not killing anyone. This is not that bad. He does a lot worse. She does a lot worse. And those are the things that are our biggest concerns, I think, when we're in this world that we're in, is that we don't deceive ourselves, the devil deceives us, into thinking that it is okay to talk badly, to criticize, to complain often. And again, when I go back through my career, I remember coming out of Harding and thinking, I just want to be a sports anchor on television, and then God blessed me with that. And then I said, if I can just be the Monday through Friday instead of the weekend, and then he blessed me with that. And if I could just go to a bigger place, and it just never stops if we're not careful. We find ways to chip away at blessings that we already have. The air conditioner at camp, back to that, right? And so I just kind of wanted to bring that out. For some reason, it's been on my mind. Got several other things. I know I was supposed to be here next week, and I had a different version of this, but we'll have a different teacher next Wednesday night. So real briefly, anybody have any closing comments or thoughts you'd like to share? Yes, sir. Condescending to someone, sure. Sure. That's a 3-week study. There are things, I can say this to you, there are people that don't realize they're doing it. Probably all of you know somebody like that, and if you don't, you may be that person. Say it again. Tone of voice. It's back to the analogy of the puppy again. It's not what you say, but how you say it. Those types of things. And so keep that in mind. Those people that you work with, that you're around, that you see out eating, make sure you know for some of them you're the only face they see that ties them back to Jesus. So thank you for the comments, and we'll continue on with our devotion time. Thank you for your help.
Somebody trying to control somebody.
You'd think.
Yeah, but I mean, that's, yeah. But
I'm
that-
trying. But yes. Somebody asked me. You want me to take that?
Somebody one day said, Good evening. Great to see each one of you here tonight. See, I can get attention, but it's not worth it. So, oh, it's great looking that way. I'm sorry about looking this way. So, but we have some visitors with us tonight, and we are so appreciative that you are with us. Some of them are kind of semi-visitors, but that's okay too. We're great that you're here, and I hope that you are happy that you're here tonight. We had a great class in the auditorium, so I hope you did too. On our prayer list, Justin Bobo was sent to Iraq on a special mission with the Mississippi Army National Guard, so keep him in your prayers. Remember the fish fry Sunday evening. There will be no service here in the auditorium. We will be back there in the fellowship hall eating. So I think our number is like right at 150, and I don't know when the last time we had that for a fellowship meal, but it is absolutely great. The craft room and the VBS needs empty Pringle cans. Please help us get this goal of 60 cans. If you want to put on a Pringles eating contest Sunday night, that will help with this, getting this number up. So, but they do need them by next Wednesday night. Our songs will be by Cole Rollins, and then Chase will have our devotional, and then Luke Connell will have our closing prayer.
Good evening. First song tonight will be number 450, Give Me the Bible. Song after the lesson will be number 867, To Canaan's Land I'm on My Way. First and last verses. Give me the Bible, star of gladness gleaming, to cheer the wanderer, lone and tempest tossed. No storm can hide that radiance peaceful beaming, since Jesus came to seek and save the lost. Give me the Bible, star of gladness gleaming, thy light shall guide me in the holy way. Precept and promise, law and love combining, till night shall vanish in eternal day. Give me the Bible, lamp of life immortal, hold up that splendor by the open grave. Show me the light from heaven's shining portal, show me the glory gilding Jordan's wave. Give me the Bible, holy message shining, thy light shall guide me in the narrow way. Precept and promise, law and love combining, till light shall vanish in the eternal day. If you will, take your Bibles, turn to James chapter 1.
James chapter 1. So April 27th, 2011, huge tornado, F5 tornado, came to Smithville, Mississippi and wiped it out. Through that tragedy, God opened a couple of doors for me. He opened a couple of doors for me in the community. One of the doors that he opened is for me to be a paraprofessional. Who knows what a paraprofessional is? All you teachers? It's somebody who sits down and watches so many minutes of video and takes tests, they're viewed as a teacher, but they don't have a teacher's license. And so I became a paraprofessional, and I started coaching girls basketball for Smithville High School. Their gym was wiped out, and so they came over to Christian Chapel, and they started using our gym. And so I had to let them in for practice every day, and the coach just said, hey, how about you become a paraprofessional and just start coming to the games and be an assistant? And I said, all right, we'll do it. I had a couple of girls that played for Smithville, and so I thought it was a great opportunity. So I became a paraprofessional and started coaching. We went on to win every game. We were 35-0 and won 2 state championships. Totally joking. We lost every single game. We were horrible. The first year, I don't think we won a game. I think we were 0-25. If we won one, I don't remember it. And the second year, we got a little better. And I kept trying to encourage the girls and tell the girls, look, you've played like 30-something games away from home. You had your whole gym wiped out. You've gone through a whole lot. We're going to win a game this year. And it just so happened that there was this team in Tupelo called TCPS. And they were just as bad as we were. And that game we had circled. Some of you coaches know what I'm talking about. You got a game that you know if you're going to get one, that better be it. And so we hadn't won any games. And I was trying to be positive Patty. I was trying to be very encouraging and letting them know we're getting better. Stay the course. We're getting better. We're improving. This team beat us by 20. Last year they beat us by 50. Okay? We're getting better. Hang in there. And so this game was coming up, and we're playing TCPS, and TCPS had one young lady that was a baller. She was awesome. I think her last name was Golding. Claire Golding was her name. She was a wonderful athlete. She was dropping 45 to 50 points a game, and that's how they were winning, was off of her. So I came up with this idea, thanks to another friend. I said, hey, you've been coaching basketball for a long time. How do we beat this girl? And so we ran a diamond and one defense. Nobody else on their team could shoot, so we put one person at the free throw line, one person on that block, one person on that block, and one person in the middle. And we said, rebound, and we put one person on Claire. We had 4 girls that rotated out every 2 to 3 minutes, and I told them, you hit her, you punch her, you pull her shorts, you are on her like white on rice. I want to know what kind of gum she's chewing. I want to know what she had for lunch. And we were interfaced the whole night. And when that girl was out there for 2 minutes, we took her out and put another girl. Halfway through the game, she was looking like this. Another one? And then that girl would get tired and we put somebody else in and she would look. Another one? I think all 3 girls fouled out. The end of the game, we won. We won at the very end on the last second shot. It was awesome. Our girls were so happy. There was nothing the other team could do. We just played better. We had a game plan. We attacked it. But there's something that I learned that day. It's very hard to keep people positive when bad things happen. It's hard to keep people in a positive mindset when negative things happen over and over and over again. And it was very hard to keep those young ladies in the right mindset. I know we're losing, but stay positive. It's going to happen. I know we're struggling right now, but stay positive. We're getting better. You got to see it. You got to see what lies ahead. There's going to be opportunities for us to get a win, and it may not happen tonight, but it's going to happen. And so I learned a very valuable lesson through those girls. It's tough to keep people positive when tough times, when trials are going on in life. You know, James gives us some very good information. In our lives, you may be going through something. You may be going through a time of testing. You may be going through a time of trials. And like those young ladies, it's very hard to stay positive. It's very hard to stay focused on Jesus Christ. And James is going to give us some important things to remember about trials and about testing. He's going to tell us that, look, when you go through these things, it's important that you remember that there is a purpose behind them. Look at what he says in James chapter 1, verse 2. Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet various trials, of various kinds. So James says, when you go through some trials and testing, don't necessarily look at it as a negative, but think of it as a good thing. Now that's strange, but here's why. He goes on and answers. This is why you need to think about it in a positive way. Because you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. Some translations say perseverance. Some translations say endurance. You're going through this for a purpose. And one of the reasons you go through negative things and you go through valleys in life is so that you can grow in your faith and you can develop this attitude of, I'm not going to give up and I can keep going. So faith being challenged is not a bad thing because it makes us stronger. And so James reminds them, hey, you're developing this attitude of, I got through this, God got me through this, He can get me through something else. We keep going and we keep pushing and we keep taking steps forward even though negative things happen. Then he says this, and let steadfastness or perseverance or endurance, whichever translation you have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. So James brings this second point. We go through things. We need to stay positive because it helps us to be complete. It helps us to be a complete Christian where we don't lack in anything. When we go through things, it builds us up, it makes us stronger, and we're not lacking in something. I don't know where you are right now in life. I hope that every person in this auditorium is going through a positive time right now. I hope we don't have any negative times here, but of course, you know that sooner or later, doesn't matter how much money you make, where you're from, what your background is, what your station in life is, how famous you are, you're going to go through suffering and you're going to go through trials of testing. Just remember, it's a good thing. As James says, there's a reason behind it so that you can grow in your faith, you can become more complete, and you can develop this attitude of not giving up and staying the course. Know that we need to lean on God during these times. So whatever you're going through tonight, stay positive. Just like those young ladies, stay positive. Stay the course. A good time's going to come. In our lesson tonight, when we go through things, don't abandon your faith. Grow in those moments. Stay the course. Walk the course. Stand firm in your faith and live for Jesus. Maybe you've thought about giving up. Don't. Come tonight and reaffirm that commitment as we stand and have our invitation song.
Never dies, my darkest night will turn to day, where the soul never dies. No sad farewells, no tear-dimmed eyes, where all is love and the soul never dies. I'm on my way to that fair land where the soul never dies, where no tears.